Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am Camille Taylor, Head of Corporate Communications at the Caribbean Development Bank, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's ceremony. It has been described as the biggest crisis ever experienced by educators in the Caribbean. The onset of the COVID-19 pandemic led to school closures, as well as declines in enrollment and student engagement. The responding shift to online learning was hampered by a lack of access to devices, limited connectivity, and the absence of student supervision. According to UNESCO, the pandemic disrupted education for 1.6 billion students worldwide, causing extensive learning loss and exacerbating inequities in education. The World Bank recently issued an urgent call to action, encouraging educators to act now to reverse education losses by carrying out reforms, building capacity, and implementing innovative solutions. While the challenges are many, the good news is that the Caribbean Development Bank, the CARICOM Secretariat, and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Commission have been working together to provide effective solutions. Last year, the three organizations joined forces to develop and roll out the Learning Recovery and Enhancement Program, or Let's REAP, as we call it. This program provides school leaders and teachers across the region with a roadmap to bridge learning gaps that have emerged or worsened due to COVID-19. Today, we have the privilege of launching a new component of the Let's REAP initiative, which will offer additional support to the ongoing work to address learning loss across the region. The CDB's Vice President of Corporate Services, Mrs. Yvette Limonius-Seal, will outline the details.
Thank you, Camille. Honorable Kay McConney, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, Barbados, and Chair of the CARICOM Council for Human and Social Development. His Excellency, Dr. Didacus Jules, Director General, OECS Commission. Miss Alison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development, CARICOM Secretariat. Technical staff of the CARICOM Secretariat, the CDB, and the OECS Commission, who comprise the regional coordinating team. Miss Ellison Delancey, Let's REAP Focal Point, Turks and Caicos Islands. Let's REAP focal points in other member countries, educators, other development partners, members of the media. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It has been 2.5 years since COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic, and certainly the disruption it has brought to lives and livelihoods cannot be overstated. Within the education sector, learning outcomes have been hampered for most, and inequities in learning systems have been exacerbated. In fact, the World Bank estimates that pandemic-induced learning interruptions in Latin America and the Caribbean may translate into foregone earnings of US 1.7 trillion for this generation. This sobering projection, and indeed US 1.7 trillion in lost earnings is indeed sobering. So this sobering projection heightens the urgency for education systems to mainstream practices that not only remediate learning gaps, but also enhance learning outcomes for all. The Caribbean Development Bank, or CDB, in its commitment to strengthening social infrastructure as a means of promoting human capital and socio-economic development in the region, is strategically investing in the Learning, Recovery, and Enhancement Program, known more widely as Let's REAP. Let's REAP is an initiative which the CDB, the CARICOM Secretariat, and the OECS Commission launched in July 2021 It seeks to empower schools to improve the quality of teaching and learning. Drawing from international and regional good practices, the program presents 9 interrelated components, each with a core set of activities that schools can prioritize to enhance inclusion and student outcomes. And of course, you'll learn more about these 9 components and related activities during the course of this launch. Importantly, however, indications are that the pace of implementation of Let's Reap across the region has been varied. It seems we need to let's leap into let's reap. Some countries have demonstrated national and school level ownership, as we'll hear from the national Let's Reap focal point for the Turks and Caicos Islands, and actually see in the video from a principal here in Barbados. Across the bank's borrowing member countries, others are working to widen and deepen implementation efforts. Regional partners have pledged to build capacity to mainstream Let's Reap. Against this backdrop, it is my pleasure to announce that CDB is financing a certification course for educators in 3 components of Let's Reap that have been identified as key drivers for improving student learning outcomes. And these components are communities of practice, assessment and differentiated instruction, and leadership and accountability for learning. The Eastern and Western Caribbean Joint Boards of Teacher Education of the University of the West Indies will implement the course for 15,000 educators over the period October 2022 to July 2024. Importantly, the course has been designed for blended delivery and flexible pacing for participants and will model how course content can be facilitated in both virtual and face-to-face teaching and learning settings. Further, to promote sustained reach of the intervention course, modules will be integrated into teacher certification programs across the region. Today marks the official launch of the course, with the training to commence on the 10th of October for the first cohort of 3,000 educators from the Bahamas in the north to Suriname in the south. CDB would like to thank the Joint Boards of Teacher Education for developing a relevant certification program that will equip the region's teachers with key competencies to embed Let's Reap in the fabric of teaching and learning. The bank is, of course, extremely excited about this program and is confident that this investment will advance our commitment to build resilient education systems that place learner success at the core. CDB would also like to thank the CARICOM Secretariat and the OECS Commission for their partnership in supporting implementation of Let's Reap. Together, we look forward to monitoring the influence of the course on our collective effort to promote success for the 1.2 million learners in basic education across the region. Colleagues, together, let's reap. Together, let's leap. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Labonia Seal, and we will adopt that as a new slogan. Let's leap into let's reap. And now I will hand the virtual podium over to the Assistant Secretary General of CARICOM, Ms. Alison Drayton.
Good morning, colleagues, and I think that is actually a great slogan, as Camille has said. So definitely, let us leap into let's reap. The Honorable Kay McConey, Minister of Education, Barbados, Dr. Didacus Jules, Director General, the OECS, Mrs. Yvette Lemonia Seal, Vice President, Corporate Services, Caribbean Development Bank, the technical staff of CARICOM Secretariat, the CDB, and the OECS, who comprise the regional coordinating team, Ms. Elisan Delancey, Focal Point Turks and Caicos Islands, Let's Reap focal points in member states, educators from across the region, and members of the media. On behalf of the Secretary General, Dr. Carla Barnett, I am pleased to offer remarks on this auspicious occasion, which marks the launch of the capacity building component of the CDB CARICOM and OECS Let's Reap for Caribbean schools. The effects of COVID 19 on education delivery, as has been already pointed out, was most evident in the disruption of learning and school closures. As systems, communities, and families turned to respond, gaps in educational access, equity, quality, and relevance were exposed significantly as the students and families struggled to gain and maintain access through technological connections. Teachers were challenged to secure equitable, relevant, and quality educational learning outcomes through technology mediated pedagogical interventions. At no point was the diagnostic and pedagogical divide between teachers and students greater than during the pandemic. For the region, the gains made in the provision of universal access to basic education and strides in literacy and numeracy achievements, along with increases to access to pre primary education, were eroded. It is indeed a tragedy. Let's Reap, as a response to put regional progress against the CARICOM HRD 2030 agenda and the SDG 4 back on track, is both timely and urgent. Capacity building for educators, informative assessment, and differentiated instruction, building communities of practice focused on student learning, and leadership for learning will go a long way towards improving student success and addressing academic trajectories and well being. Let's Reap, through the agentic activities of teachers in schools, seeks to address long standing issues that the pandemic has exacerbated and enhance the resilience of national education systems through formative assessment, differentiation, and teachers learning from each other in a community of practice. Let's Reap will support learning recovery activities in the basic education system and allow students to participate while gaining quality education to make a meaningful contribution to society on their journey to becoming an ideal Caribbean person. Educators, more than before, are expected to cater to the needs of students in meaningful ways, to not only satisfy the requirements of the curriculum, but also prepare them for the world of work. Thus, this training will contribute to increases in teacher efficacy and student survival and completion rates across the basic education sector, increasing the potential for youth employability and enhanced economic activity. As the Assistant Secretary General for the Directorate of Human and Social Development, I am pleased with the progress of implementation at the regional level so far and commend all of our educators who will participate in the first cohort of training. I am aware of the innovations that are taking place at the national level, particularly in Grenada, Barbados, and the Turks and Caicos, and I know that you will be energized by these when you hear of them today. The CARICOM Secretariat is honored to have partnered with the CDB and the OECS to have arrived at this point. Special thanks also to the Joint Board of Teacher Education, Eastern and Western Caribbean. Together with regional stakeholders, we will continue to focus our efforts towards learning recovery to improve the quality of education in the region. I thank you.
And I'll do take two and start that again. One of the benefits of technology is that you can almost be in two places at the same time. the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Commission, His Excellency Dr. Didicus Jules, was unable to be present with us today. However, he's still able to participate in the proceedings via a pre-recorded message. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Didicus Jules.
We cannot always build a future for our youth, but we can build them for the future. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Quite an apt reflection as we celebrate International Youth Day 2022 under the theme Intergenerational Solidarity, Creating a World for All Ages. The new strategic direction of the OECS is premised on the inclusion of youth as a cross-cutting theme, as we aspire towards the inclusion of youth voices in all major decision-making. This requires a collaborative and intergenerational effort, where we provide support for the vision of youth, allowing them to unleash their unlimited imagination and liberate their yet untapped potential. As we celebrate and reflect on this International Youth Day, it is important that you recognize that the world in which we live is very uncertain. It is faced with a confluence of factors which affects your development, ranging from climate change, COVID-19, the digital revolution, wars, and other periods of global instability. However, it also presents opportunities that you must seize if you are to shape your destiny and the world that you inherit. If the world is to look like what you as young people want it to be, then you must take control of your destiny. You are poised to redefine our world, not only because of your numerical significance, but because of your unmatched talent, skills, and vision for development. For this reason, you should be deliberately included in decision-making, not as mere inheritors, but as equal partners of development. I would be doing a disservice to you, however, if I did not urge you to analyze the theme and recognize that it is challenging you young people to see the development of youth not as a destination or a sprint, but as a relay race or a marathon. Viewed through this lens, we will then be able to simultaneously look back, look at our current circumstances,
And we apologize for the incorrect video insert in the program, and we will keep moving right along to another video intervention. Now, as you would have heard earlier, the overarching Learning, Recovery, and Enhancement Program was launched last year, and the response from our beneficiaries has been extremely encouraging. Now, to give you an idea of the impact, it's our pleasure to share an excerpt from a video which features the principal of Grazette's Primary School in Barbados and a very satisfied parent. They're reflecting on the merits of the diagnostic assessment, which is one of the key modules of the LEAP program.
Mrs. Grazette, you spoke about the learning loss that has been caused by the pandemic. What advice would you give this school? Should we continue with this diagnostic test and doing the parallel test at the end? I just want to hear from you.
Without a doubt, I do believe that you should continue, most definitely. It's an awesome thing that has been established. I am not aware if it happens in other schools, I don't know, or if it's something that has been birthed from Grazette's Primary School due to the coming out of the pandemic. I'm not sure, but it's a fantastic thing, and I do believe that it can only get better. It can only get better as you go on. So I would applaud. I would definitely applaud and encourage you to keep doing it for sure. For sure. I have seen the benefits of it as a parent, and my child has seen the benefits of it as well, because not only where I see where he needs help in getting the weak areas back up, but he himself as a student knows where he needs to put in the extra effort to bring up his grades in that area. So the diagnostic and the parallel, collaboration between the two definitely helps in these. So yes, Mrs. Baptiste, that question, yes, 1,000 times yes, please continue with it indeed. And I am very grateful for you and for every teacher at Grisette's Primary School for the hard work and the hard effort that they have put in this diagnostic assessment.
Yes. Well, the pandemic really propelled us to find ways to deal with the learning loss. And obviously, I would say when we heard about the Let's Read, it provided the framework, for us to really start to focus and mainstream diagnostic assessment. So I would not say that we weren't doing diagnostic assessment before. It was something that we pushed. But like I said, the learning loss that came about as a result of the pandemic caused us to take up what was called Let's Read.
And we're very happy to hear from our beneficiaries there. Everybody is fully involved in education, parents, students, and teachers. And of course, we will continue to work as a team to make up for the learning loss that occurred as a result of the pandemic. Now, when Let's Reap was introduced in 2021, we encouraged educators to take ownership of the program and tailor it to make it meaningful and effective for their institutions. Our partners in the Turks and Caicos Islands were among those who took on the challenge. And Mrs. Elisan Delancey, the Let's Leap focal point for TCI, will share about how they customized the program in that territory. She will be participating via a pre-recorded message.
Honorable Kay McConney, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, Barbados, and Chair of CARICOM Council for Human and Social Development, Mrs. Yvette Seal, Vice President, Corporate Services, CDB, His Excellence, Dr. Dedicus Jules, Director General, OECS Commission, Mrs. Allison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development, CARICOM, technical staff of CARICOM, CDB, and OECS Commission, who comprise the regional coordinating team. Let's Reap focal point from our member states, educators, other development partners, members of media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Elsie-Ann Delancey, Curriculum Development Officer from the beautiful by nature Turks and Caicos Islands. I am humbled and elated to be able to share with you some of my experiences as focal point for the Turks and Caicos Islands, as well as representative focal point from our member states team. We were asked to contextualize Let's Reap, and we here in the Turks and Caicos Islands did that. We rebranded the program as the Literacy and Numeracy Recovery and Enhancement Program. We felt that it was needed to readjust the program based on the unique situation within the islands. As focal points, we were introduced to 9 components within the Let's Read program, and we were taken on an implementation journey with Let's Read. In the Turks and Caicos Islands, we focused our energy on the components that we felt was needed based on our situation and unique context. We focused on leadership and accountability, where we established strong functioning communities of practices. We looked at management and communication. We assigned principals as district focal points, which were used as mediums for communicating any information sent from the regional Let's Read team. We also focused on teacher support and collaboration. Our teacher over the past year, or our teachers over the past year, has engaged in rigorous training to build capacity in literacy and numeracy in relation to ICT. Hurricanes and pandemics may still come, so we have to ensure our teachers are equipped to transform education via ICT. We also focus on assessment to ensure data-driven decisions are made during the month of September. Every school within our public system engaged in diagnostic assessment. We also look at resources and curriculum. We increase access and support. Support and access using our curriculum website, where teachers, parents, and students at all levels has access to documents, information relating to Let's Reap, as well as training videos. We looked at parents and family. We believe that parent support is crucial to develop literacy and numeracy skills, and because of that, we have launched our parental involvement campaign titled Get Involved. This includes a song, a PSA, as well as billboards around the Turks and Caicos Islands that focus on literacy and numeracy development. We also look at the component inclusion, special education needs, and well-being. And with this, our specialists at the department level, which includes the special needs education officer, the educational psychologist, are collaborating with special needs teachers and guidance and counselors to ensure that no student is left behind. I am confident that with this incoming training, all participating teachers and education officers will now be better equipped to effectively implement the program at the district as well as the school level. Thank you for your opportunity, or thank you for this opportunity to share, and the continuous support provided by CARICOM, CDB, and Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. I speak on behalf of the member state focal point team. We appreciate the effort made. As we say here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, small axe cut down big tree, which can be translated as, I may be small, but I can handle a big task. Although we may be seen as small in the Caribbean, we can make major strides as we recover and enhance learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Delancey. It's always good to be reminded of the strength we have in spite of our size. When we speak about the ravages of learning loss and the dire consequences it could have for an entire generation, I know those words resonate with our special guest speaker. She is on the front lines of the battle to save our children and ensure that thousands of learners here in Barbados and across the Caribbean are able to achieve their full potential in spite of the setbacks caused by the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to introduce the Honorable Kay McConney, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training in Barbados and Chair of the CARICOM Council for Human and Social Development. Minister, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Chair of Proceedings. With the protocols and salutations having been established, with your permission, I shall adopt and say good morning to all of you. And I bring brief remarks to this audience with an optimism that Let's Reap will indeed deliver the support and the value and the capacity we need in this region to recover and to leap forward in education at this opportune time. The last 3 years, we have witnessed loss which has affected our lives and our livelihoods in many ways. Our students were not excluded from this experience, as education had to be reconfigured. An area of significant importance was learning loss as schools closed and as classes were conducted in the virtual space, or work had to be prepared and repackaged for delivery to our students. The message of lessons was lost for those who thrived on face-to-face and had to endure online methodologies. The means for learning were lost for those who had not the access to internet or devices. And the moment of learning was lost for many in the region who simply did not cope well, not only academically, but emotionally and mentally as well, with virtual and hybrid modes of engaging. Teachers and students, principals and parents, you heard earlier, all of them were impacted. Thankfully, the CARICOM Secretariat, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and the Caribbean Development Bank recognized and collectively led a response to address some of the challenges and gaps that have emerged to accelerate learning outcomes for our students. The Learning Recovery and Enhancement Program, REAP, which is being launched today, certainly the certificate, the teacher certification course of it, it is a fitting response. It examines leadership and accountability, management and communication, regional and national partnerships, teacher support and collaboration, inclusion and social development, formative assessment, well-being for parents and family community. And the collaborative effort of REAP, it embraces key players within the educational sphere. Education management at the national and institutional levels, parents, caregivers, and the wider community. In addition, it aims to engage all educational partners to work together towards the success of our most important constituents. That's our students. Barbados, as well as other members of the Caribbean community, we have started making steps towards making this multi-tiered intervention a reality through continuous training for the regional Let's REAP focal points. I am also informed that awareness sessions have been held for school principals across the region to sensitize them about the goals of the program. There is room for continued involvement of all partners as outlined in the strategy, and I find that encouraging. We all need to continue to assess the strides made through this program to revisit or to improve as necessary the techniques which will be utilized in our classrooms in order to build the capacity of our teachers. This Caribbean Development Bank sponsored training, which will begin, which we know it was launched before, and this course that will begin in October 2022, it will allow participants to receive certification in formative assessment, differentiated instruction, building communities of practice and leadership. This training has sparked enthusiasm amongst principals and teachers and education officers, and we see this as an integral component of the journey. I am of the firm belief that, as history has shown, our resilience as Caribbean people will stand. We will rise to address the identified challenges and commitment and dedication to the quality of education. At the end of this experience, I trust that Let's REAP will register that we as a people are well on the road to overcoming and excelling in education. And so Barbados joins the rest of the region to collectively commit to this very empowering journey ahead. Let's leap to reap. I thank you.
I thank you, Minister, And if we needed any motivation to continue the journey, you have certainly provided it. And to mark the official launch of the capacity building element of the Let's Reap program, I'm going to ask Vice President of Corporate Services for the CDB, Mrs. Yvette Lemonious Seal, to present a token to the Minister. VP. Thank you, Minister.
Minister, thanks for all you do for us, both nationally and regionally. Most of all, thanks for your support for this Let's Reap project.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And our VP just thanked the Minister for her support and for joining us for the launch this morning in presenting the token. Now, we invited members of the media to our launch event, and we depend on our partners in the media to spread the word about what our organizations are doing to make the region a better place. At this time, we'll open the floor in case there are any questions or if there's anything that needs to be clarified, and we'll field your questions. I would ask our friends in the media, if you'd like to ask a question, if you could raise your hand virtually on the Zoom platform. Once I've acknowledged you, you can unmute and or turn on your camera. And alternatively, you can pose your question by writing it in the chat, and I will ask it for you. Please indicate who your question is directed to. Thank you, and the floor is open. At this point, it would appear that we were crystal clear, and there are no follow-up questions. Of course, the media knows how to reach the various organizations, the OECS, CARICOM, and CDB. So you can always pose your question to us via email. Reach out. We are happy to engage and to speak. But we are glad that there was absolute clarity this morning. And so all that remains for us to do now is just to close the proceedings. I would like to thank all the participants, especially the Minister of Education, Technology, and Vocational Training for Barbados and Chair of the CARICOM Council for Human and Social Development, the Honorable Kay McConney. Before we close, we'd like to encourage our teachers across the region to keep working to give our students the best education possible. To our students, we encourage you to keep fighting to make up for lost ground. You can do it. Organizations like the Caribbean Development Bank, CARICOM, and the OECS Commission are firmly behind you. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we often said that we're all in this together. We still are. Let's leap into Let's Reap. God bless the Caribbean, the region that we work for, live in, and love. I thank you for joining us.